guess the first thing I wanted to ask you is what does the development staff gain from these types of tournaments?
Um, I think it's just great to get everybody in live game environment. With development camp, we do a lot of drills. We get to know them better, obviously, but there's no games against their peers or live action. What happens here is having them play their peers and, kind of live ammo kind of situation where you really can see, those skills put to work. So we can get a good evaluation of all the players. It also helps the players kind of springboard into camp. The ones that are attending NHL camp, they kind of have a leg up of the speed and physicality. Starting this a number of years ago with 3 teams, and now it's grown to 7. It's good for us, right from the NHL coaches to our scouts, management, player development staff, even our American League staff, to see how these guys play games.
And as a player, you always found a way to make an impression at training camp. What did you discover helped you to find success in that environment?
Yeah, I think it's kind of what we say to the kids: is just do what you do. Don't try to be a different player than you are. We tell them that someone in the Avalanche organization has identified you as a strong player with Avalanche habits, and use those and take advantage of those. So you don't want to blend in. You don't want to just be another jersey filler out there. You got to be able to stand out a little bit. So we encourage them to do that. We had players do that yesterday and look for more today. But training camp's it's a nervous time of year for them. So you're trying to make them feel comfortable. Create a relationship with them, instill confidence in them so they can be in a position to produce the best. But it's exciting for them as well. It's a great opportunity.
How much has that changed what it takes to stand out then versus what the Av specific needs are now?
It's hard to say. I mean, everybody's got a little bit different to add, in different positions. Goalie, it's a whole different ball game. Just, we this one is different just because we have 3 older free agent goalies to fill the spot because our drafted goalies are in Russia or they're going to NCAA. But defense, we have Sean Barron's coming in. We just want him to do his best and do what he does. He's not going to be a guy who's going to rush the puck and score, a couple goals a game. He just does his job, and that's what he did yesterday. So, it's different for everybody, but it's it's exciting, and I thought the boys showed well yesterday.
Now, 2 players have shouted out Andrew Cogliano as being really influential. Since being added to the development side of things, do you know what kinds of things he's been doing that have been so helpful?
Yeah, it's been great. Cogs and I talk, it seems like almost every day. Here we are attached at the hip, but throughout the summer, he took Calum Ritchie, Oskar Olausson, Jean-Luc Foudy kind of on as his projects. And, to take that last step to make the NHL is very difficult. And just the little ins and outs of, scheduling, habits, we like to call them, things you do every day to get yourself better. He's really helped with them. And it was advantageous having him in Denver. Those guys came to Denver early in August to start training, and he was there every day with them, showing them little, I want to go back to the word habits, just little things you got to do every day to not only get to the NHL, but to stay to the NHL. And Dylan's, he epitomizes that, the career he had, the durability he had, the consistency he had. And I think that's what young guys lack, is that just knowing those things. And we can't assume that they do know. So Cogs has been, right from day one, amazing. We got to know each other better at the draft. That's where it started. Weren't really sure where his path was going to lead as far as daily duties, for lack of a better term, but really the development. I've told him it's the best job in the organization, but I may be biased. But seeing the results of the work you put in, and he put a lot of work into those guys in August, and now this is kind of the first step of them into the season with training camp, or rookie camp, and then to training camp.
And have you seen returns almost immediately in that influence that he has with the young players?
Yes, for sure. Even the captain skates that Cal and Jean-Luc and Oskar were doing, interacting with McKinnon and some of the older guys in that, you see that early on, and then just the way they're carrying themselves confidence-wise in this tournament, Oskar and Cal, on and off the ice, just a little more shoulders back, confidence, leadership. Just getting into Denver early helps with that, and then just the daily conversations that he's having. And those are 2 that obviously he's spending a lot of time with, but the the whole group of 28 is the same. We're trying to help them show their best.
And Cal Ritchie has built up a lot of size and strength this offseason. What is the role of the development staff in terms of the progress and the process that it takes to reach that level, and kind of what's the right level of intervention to have?
That's a good question, because you don't want to overstep and you're not his parent. You're not talking to him every single day, but you're very involved in nutrition, strength training, rest recovery, sleep, on ice, all those things. So we dive into that with all of our prospects. And, with Cal, the injury last year being out from May to November and the recovery with that, he missed a whole summer of training. And for a young player, 18, 19 years old, missing that summer is a really big deal. So he did amazing when he came back in November. And then throughout the season, we're heavily involved in, okay, you missed that training. Let's get on the weights. Let's get that strength back during the hockey season, which is difficult, especially a player like that who's a premier player in his league. He's playing, over 20 minutes every game, so it's hard to get those extra workouts in. So when his season ended in Oshawa, we got him to development camp, and again, just going, okay, what do you eat for breakfast in the morning? What do you do after that? Okay, after you skate, what do you have? After you work out, what do you have? Just giving him ideas with nutritionists and Alexi, the new strength and conditioning coach with the Avs, getting him involved in his nutrition and his daily routine. So there's really no stone left unturned when you're developing these young guys, and you want to make sure you his strengths. You're told his strengths from the scouts and what you see on the ice, but you really want to identify the areas of weakness and improvement. And with Cal, we found those. He's gained a lot of weight and good weight. You want to make sure of that. And I think he looks really good, and it's their prime development years, 18 to 22. That's very important. So we're doing everything we can we don't want to expedite it, but just make sure it's on a good pace moving forward.
And there have been a lot of new hires to the American League side, a little bit development staff too. How do some of the new personnel help to honor or align with the development philosophy of the organization?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's with Bobby Lucas, who I don't know if you know the name. He was head and strength and conditioning coach with the Eagles, promoted. So Bobby's, I call him a genius, just a very intelligent person. Just any question I would have, he'd be like, yep, and have the answers. And we use them to reach out directly to the players and also to the players' strength and conditioning coaches. So Alexi has a relationship with Cogs. He has a relationship with Nathan McKinnon. So we use him quite a bit too to reach out to these players. And actually, Alexi's reaching out with one of our players right now in college. So we use them all the time for their wealth of knowledge. We don't, just because we played, we don't claim to know all these things. We rely on them as we did when we played. So using them helps us do our job better. And, when you have the resources that we have, we take advantage of it.
And I know that you do a lot of these development days with the Eagles throughout the season. How have you seen the identity of the Eagles take shape under Schneekloth in his coaching following the Cronin era?
Yeah, we saw Greg here yesterday, as you probably did. We all learned so much from Greg, and just the way he ran his team on a daily basis, and then what it looked like to a fan or another scout. And I found that last year. I would meet the Eagles team on the road and maybe watch the game with a pro scout from another team, and they say, boy, you guys play very similar to the Avalanche. Just the pace and the transition and the compete. And, that's a feather in the cap of, for sure, Greg Cronin, and then Aaron Schneekloth after that. He's carried that on with Tim Branham, and last year Steve Konowalchuk, who did so great. It's another promotion. Peter Budaj did great, another promotion. So we're very proud of those coaches we had and what's happened to them and the ascension that they've made. Bringing Dan Hinote in now is another breath of fresh air. Old teammate of mine and Joe's, and played together many years ago. And you've seen him in practice here, just an excitable guy and another person who can help our players take that next step.
I'd never seen the spray paint on the ice at the practice before the rookie face-off before. That felt like a Hinote thing already.
Yeah, that's probably a Cronin thing, I think. Okay. Yeah, we would do that up north. Just another teaching, right? It's something, and when you think of that, then you think of Greg. So just another tool that we use to help teach him. But something. I don't know if all the rink staffs enjoy it, But just another way to help them.
And there's a lot of center options in this tournament for this group. How is Ivan separated from his peers internally to earn the opportunities that he's getting?
Yeah, that's a great story. Coming in last year on an American League deal out of the Quebec League, undrafted, and then just put his head down and worked. Got better every day with the Eagles, earned himself an NHL contract, and then coming over into this rookie tournament, he's filled out physically. He just looks so much more mature on the ice, and he's a player that relied upon heavily in the center ice position in this tournament for this young team, almost as a leader already, which happened in a hurry. And then we're all pretty excited about him next week with the NHL camp. Just what he could do there. Last year, he earned himself a second exhibition game just by the way he played in camp, the first game, and then into the second game. So hopefully he can carry that confidence on. But another player that just looks stronger and more mature than he finished the year.
And in that wealth of centers, there's Steinberg, Pavel, Ivan also among them.
Yeah.
On paper, they start to sound the same, just defensive-minded centers, but can you assign unique qualifiers to what their individual strengths are as players?
Yeah, you can. And we keep in mind, too, going up to the NHL, like the center ice spot may not be there. So, if that's locked at 4 there, then you got to learn to play wing. So you got to do some things to separate yourself on wing. Matt Steinberg, Ivan, both great penalty killers. Steiny would be predominantly on the wing, and maybe adds a little more of the sandpaper grit side to it. He brings that along, but they both really took ownership of that penalty kill last year, and that gained them more ice time in games. As a young player, sometimes it's hard to get as much ice time if you're not on a special team, but both of them did that very well. Andre Pavel, another free agent coming in, really takes daily pride in his craft. He works at it incessantly. Face-offs, video, whatever it may be, and he's a very driven individual. So another player that has prominently played center, but again, we'll have to learn the wing habits because you get a recall. Well, maybe we want you to play left wing for the Avalanche tonight. You're not going to say, no, I'm a centerman. So they got to learn those other habits. But, you can never, there's the saying, you can never have enough D, you can never have enough centermen because centermen can usually go and play wing. Not often can wings double up and play center. So it's good to have that depth.
Nikita Pianta impressed at Dev Camp this summer. Have you learned anything new about him and these viewings of him, and kind of what is the trajectory for him moving forward?
Yeah, super kid. Seeing him yesterday in that game, that's the first live game I've seen of him. When we draft them, that's where I get to know them. So obviously I watched a bunch of tape of him in the Quebec League, but came back quite a bit stronger, bigger and stronger. Had a good summer of training. Again, super kid, great English, took it upon himself to learn English, living in North America. I was down there yesterday, and he takes a lot of pride in his penalty kill. They did the penalty kill meeting, and then he had 10, 15 questions for the penalty kill coach to make sure he knew it, leave no stone unturned for himself to make sure that he was going to put his best foot forward in that game yesterday. Very physical. I wasn't quite expecting that, but he got around the ice, he competed hard on pucks, and he threw his body around. And again, goes back to what I said at the start, he found a way to separate himself and make himself noticeable. So drafted an older player, obviously being a 2004. It's a big tournament for him to make an impression. And then again next week in NHL camp.
And I've asked you about Sean Behrens before, but I wanted to know more generally how preparing defensemen has changed with the evolution of the defenseman position. And, it seems like they all have to be puck-moving defensemen at this stage. But for someone who's undersized like Behrens, he also needs to be very well-rounded to have any shot at getting it to translate. I guess, how has, preparing them evolved with the evolution of the position? And then for Behrens specifically, are there any advantages that he has?
Yeah, so your first question, preparing, there is little idiosyncrasies or just little things you can show them that are different from amateur to pro. And we rely on Tim Branham, defenseman, Aaron Steenkloff, defenseman, that they can say, hey, when you're heading in the corner this way, he's right-handed, you see this is maybe a better route to take. Whereas he was so smart and elite in college, he could get away with not doing it perfectly, and maybe or the way we would like to do it. And then we see it all the time with juniors. You'd see with Calum Ritchie or Oskar when they played in the OHL. You can get away with more things there. So when Sean comes to pro, there's just little things that will teach him, that will help him make up for his size. He can get to this side. If you have your stick here, you're going to force him this way, and you'll have a better chance of taking the puck this way. Lane management, web defending, whatever it may be. He's such a smart player. He's a smart player, and he's a super competitive player. And in college, the bigger the game, the better he played. And that's something that you can have all the player development you want. You can't teach someone to be a big game player. He just has that in him. So that will carry him. He's a courageous player that we felt early on in his college career, he took a lot of hits they didn't need to take because I'm going to make this play. It's like, well, you don't need to put yourself in that spot. You could, get it, make the play, get out of the way. You don't need to keep taking hits like that. So he's worked on that his last year of college for sure, last year and a half of college. He'll need to do that going into pro because these are grown men now. These are big, strong men that are forward-checking you. So to answer your question, there's little things that we can teach him at the pro level to help him kind of navigate the ice better. And again, he's smart, he skates well, and he's a competitor, so he's going to be just fine. But if we can just keep adding to his game, that'll get him to the next level.
And you've overseen the development of Oskar Olausson and Jean-Luc Foudy now for a little bit of time. Still very young players, but with a decent amount of pro experience. What are the realities about where they're at in their development, and what do they need to do as not to stall out or stagnate so that they continue elevating?
Yeah, so Oskar first, obviously the shoulder surgery was not ideal last year. Ending the season early and missing that drive to the playoffs, that helps players so much to gain that experience. And that's a reason why we field such a competitive team in Loveland is A, we want to win, but B, it really helps with their development if they're playing in those big games and not eliminated from playoffs in January. So, that hurt a little bit, but it also gave him time to reset and get a full summer of training and come back ready. But yeah, in reality, it's his third year pro. He had his year in junior in Canada, his 2 years of pro, and now it's time to take a step. And we've used our analytic group to show him results from the last couple of years to help push him forward. Strength and conditioning, nutrition, whatever it may be. But it's maturing time. It's time to take a step forward, and that's what we're looking for Oskar. So we expect big things. Wherever he ends up at the start of the year, it's a strong team in Colorado. We have a very strong veteran forward group in Loveland as well with the players we brought in there. So you can't get to the NHL by yourself. You're buoyed by your coaches and your teammates. So expect a big month from him. Jean-Luc, yeah, the injury was so that's trying on someone, mentally and it's such a different path. It's a development file we've never seen before when you're 18 years old playing in the American Hockey League. And then the opportunity to go back but stay as a 19-year-old. So he's just spent so much time in pro hockey and was ascending very well, and then the injury set him back, and it was a really tough year. But again, we use our analytic department, strength and conditioning, leave no stone unturned for him. Cogs took over that file in August, and that's really helped. And Foods came out August 15th and has been training in Denver ever since. So that's a player, super competitive, strong on pucks, natural centerman, but has really learned how to play the wing very, very well and been on the wall and has had a taste of the NHL. So he understands the expectations there. And, I think he's maybe one of the most talked about players right now, just going in, and he's not even here. So we're really excited what he can do. You keep saying we say it's hard to get there, and it's just harder to stay. You have to have your best game almost every game in the NHL as a young player. So he has the confidence to do it. A kid that's carries himself well, knows what he's good at, and is kind of unflappable out there. Like he carries that courage on the ice with him. So we're excited for him.
And this is the last one, but you lit up when talking about Cogliano and being on the development side, how there's a little bias. What do you love so much about doing this job?
Well, I think it's that time when I'm in town, maybe at an Eagles game, and I'll go down to Ball Arena, and then there's a kid that I worked with out there. Just to see that ascension from watching him in a junior rink, watching him at the Eagles, and then eventually Ball Arena. That's when we developed that relationship early on. And player development really is about creating relationship, creating trust with the player. So you can tell them anything. You can criticize them. You can tell them flat out what is going on. If you don't have that trust or relationship there, then that falls on deaf ears. So we create the relationship first, and the odds are a lot of players aren't going to make it just statistically, but whatever player you're working with, whatever family you get to know, if you can make them better and find them or help them attain their best, then it's a success. The pinnacle is seeing these guys are elite, but Bowen Byram or Kale or those guys that get out there and win a Stanley Cup, that part is pretty amazing. But just the other guys that get their first NHL game or get told they're going to stay in the NHL or whatever it may be, those are the excitable moments for the player development guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Willsie.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've been very generous with your time. We both really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Thank you.